Forget the cheap thrills, the sudden loud noises designed to make you jump, the predictable villains lurking in the shadows. Forget everything you thought you knew about fear in cinema, because what Alfred Hitchcock engineered was far more insidious, far more profound. He wasn't just a director, he was a psychological architect, a master puppeteer pulling at the very strings of human anxiety. He didn't merely create suspense, he fabricated it, piece by agonizing piece, constructing a world where dread was not an outcome, but a constant, suffocating atmosphere. This wasn't about a simple plot twist, this was about a deliberate, almost diabolical plan to infiltrate your mind, to make you complicit in the unfolding terror, to expose you to a vulnerability you never knew you possessed. It's a true understanding of his method that no one truly explains in its full, chilling detail. Before we delve deeper into the genius of a man who redefined fear, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button to join us on this journey into the mind of the master. Hitchcock understood a fundamental truth about human nature: we fear the unknown, but we dread the known that we are powerless to prevent. His genius lay not in surprising his audience, but in tormenting them with foreknowledge. He famously articulated the difference between surprise and suspense through his bomb under the table analogy. If a bomb suddenly explodes, it's a surprise. The audience is shocked for a moment. But if the audience knows there's a bomb under the table, ticking away, while the characters blithely converse, then the tension becomes unbearable. Every casual word, every innocent gesture, every fleeting second becomes a hammer blow against the viewer's nerves. This wasn't just a technique, it was the cornerstone of his entire cinematic philosophy, a merciless strategy to keep his audience perpetually on the edge of their seats, not just for a fleeting jump, but for the agonizing duration of an entire film. He wasn't interested in making you scream, he was interested in making your stomach churn, your palms sweat, your heart pound with a relentless rhythm of impending doom. This approach transformed the very act of watching a movie into an active, almost participatory experience of dread. You weren't just observing the characters, you were with them, sometimes even ahead of them, burdened by knowledge they lacked. This unique perspective, this privileged yet terrifying vantage point, was Hitchcock's secret weapon. He didn't just tell stories, he crafted elaborate psychological experiments, using the audience as his unwitting subjects. He played on our innate empathy, our desire for justice, and our profound fear of the innocent being caught in a web of circumstances beyond their control. This wasn't about monsters or supernatural threats in dimly lit castles, it was about the chilling realization that terror could arise from the most mundane settings, from the most ordinary people, turning the familiar into the utterly horrifying. A quiet suburban street, a seemingly friendly neighbor, a flock of birds, all became instruments of his carefully orchestrated terror. He understood that true fear resonates most deeply when it is anchored in reality, or at least, a distorted reflection of it. His villains were rarely fantastical, they were often charming, intelligent, disturbingly human. They could be the charismatic stranger, the seemingly respectable citizen, or even the protagonists themselves, driven to desperate acts. This blurring of lines between hero and villain, between victim and perpetrator, added another layer of unsettling complexity to his narratives. The audience wasn't just watching a good guy chase a bad guy, they were often witnessing ordinary individuals thrust into extraordinary, morally ambiguous situations, forced to confront the darkest aspects of human nature, sometimes even their own. This was the worst-case scenario he constantly presented, not just external danger, but the internal collapse, the erosion of safety and sanity within the everyday world. He made you question not just what would happen, but who you could trust, and perhaps most disturbingly, what you yourself might be capable of under duress. His visual language was as precise and deliberate as a surgeon's scalpel. Every camera angle, every cut, every shift in perspective served a specific purpose: to heighten tension, to manipulate perception, to guide the audience's gaze to precisely what he wanted them to see, or more often, what he wanted them to imagine. He famously said, "There is no terror in the bang, only in the anticipation of it." And he was a master of anticipation. He used close-ups to isolate characters, magnifying their fear or suspicion. He employed subjective camera shots, forcing the audience to see the world through the eyes of a terrified victim or a calculating villain. He utilized tracking shots that slowly, inexorably, advanced towards an unseen threat, turning the act of moving through space into an exercise in pure dread. The staircase in Psycho, the crop duster sequence in North by Northwest, the shower scene, these weren't just memorable moments, they were meticulously choreographed ballets of fear, each frame designed to elicit a specific physiological and psychological response. He was always in control, orchestrating our emotions with the precision of a maestro conducting a symphony of screams. This wasn't just filmmaking, it was a profound study of the human psyche, a systematic dismantling of our sense of security, replaced by a pervasive, creeping unease. He didn't need blood or gore to achieve this, his violence was often implied, its true horror residing in the audience's imagination, fueled by his masterful suggestion. He understood that the terror we conjure in our own minds is always far more potent, far more personal, than anything he could explicitly show on screen. He gave us just enough information, just enough visual cues, to allow our own darkest fears to fill in the blanks, turning us into co-conspirators in our own torment. This was his true plan, his hidden agenda, to make the audience an active participant in their own psychological unraveling, leaving them breathless, shaken, and utterly convinced of his unparalleled mastery. He wasn't interested in simple thrills, he was interested in the prolonged, almost exquisite agony of suspense. His films were not merely entertainment, they were carefully constructed machines for generating anxiety, each gear and lever perfectly calibrated. He understood that the audience's emotional investment was paramount. By placing ordinary people in extraordinary, terrifying situations, he made it easy for viewers to project themselves into the narrative. We see ourselves in the innocent man wrongly accused, in the woman trapped in a dangerous situation, in the individual whose life is suddenly and irrevocably turned upside down. This relatability forged a powerful, empathetic bond, making the ensuing terror all the more visceral. It wasn't just their nightmare, it became, for a few agonizing hours, ours. Furthermore, Hitchcock was a master of misdirection, not in the sense of cheap tricks, but in subtly shifting our focus, making us question what was truly important, what was truly dangerous. He would often introduce seemingly innocuous details that later proved to be crucial, or conversely, build up suspense around a red herring, only to reveal the true threat from an unexpected quarter. This constant psychological game, this dance between expectation and subversion, kept the audience perpetually off balance, unable to relax, always searching for the hidden meaning, the lurking danger. He fostered a sense of paranoia, both within the narrative and within the viewer's own mind, making us acutely aware of the fragility of order, the thin veneer separating civility from chaos. This was his profound understanding of human vulnerability, and his ruthless exploitation of it for cinematic effect. His control was absolute, not just over the camera and the actors, but over the very pulse of his audience. He didn't just direct films, he directed emotions. Hitchcock's true genius, the hidden agenda no one fully comprehends, lay in his ability to dismantle the very foundations of comfort and certainty. He didn't just tell stories of danger, he crafted narratives designed to expose the terrifying fragility of our perceived reality. He understood that the real worst-case scenario wasn't a monster in the dark, but the insidious realization that the world we trust, the people we love, and even our own minds, could betray us. His films were not just thrillers, they were elaborate psychological traps, meticulously baited to ensnare the viewer in a web of existential dread. He made us question the kindness of strangers, the sanctity of home, the reliability of justice, and the sanity of our own perceptions. This wasn't mere entertainment, it was an education in fear, a masterclass in the art of making the familiar utterly alien. He achieved this not through overt horror, but through a relentless, systematic erosion of conventional safety nets. Think of the innocent protagonist, often an everyman or everywoman, suddenly plunged into a nightmare not of their making, accused of crimes they didn't commit, pursued by forces they don't understand. This wasn't just a plot device, it was a profound illustration of life's inherent unfairness, a terrifying glimpse into a world where logic dissolves and innocence offers no protection. The conflict he provoked was internal, the audience's desperate hope for resolution pitted against the overwhelming, suffocating sense of injustice. We longed for the hero to be cleared, for truth to prevail, but Hitchcock delighted in prolonging the agony, forcing us to confront the uncomfortable possibility that sometimes, the good don't win, and the innocent suffer. This was his true plan, to force us to experience, vicariously, the profound terror of powerlessness. Consider the meticulous construction of his female characters, often elegant, poised, yet inherently vulnerable. They were not damsels in distress in the traditional sense, they were intelligent, capable women whose strength was slowly, agonizingly chipped away by circumstances beyond their control. From Marion Crane in Psycho to Melanie Daniels in The Birds, their descent into terror was a slow burn, a gradual unraveling that mirrored the audience's own growing unease. He explored the psychological toll of sustained fear, transforming characters from confident individuals into trembling, desperate figures. This wasn't about cheap scares, it was about the chilling portrayal of human resilience pushed to its absolute breaking point, revealing the fragile veneer that separates composure from complete breakdown. It was a mirror held up to our own potential disintegration under pressure, a worst-case scenario for the human spirit itself. Hitchcock's ability to turn everyday objects and settings into harbingers of doom was another cornerstone of his true plan. A flock of birds, a seemingly innocuous shower, a winding staircase, a carousel, a glass of milk, all became imbued with an unsettling, almost malevolent energy. He understood that true terror doesn't need fantastical monsters, it thrives in the subversion of the ordinary. The more mundane the setting, the more profound the shock when it becomes a stage for unimaginable horror. This created a lasting psychological impact, making viewers wary of their own surroundings long after the credits rolled. The world itself became a potential source of dread, a constant, subtle reminder of the lurking malevolence he so masterfully depicted. This wasn't just about a film, it was about subtly altering your perception of reality, making you perpetually aware of the hidden dangers in plain sight. This unsettling reframing of reality is precisely what sets Hitchcock apart. He didn't just present a story, he presented a philosophical argument about the nature of fear, control, and the human condition. His films weren't just about what happens, but what could happen, and what that potential reveals about us. They forced us to confront the uncomfortable truth that chaos is always just beneath the surface of order, and that our sense of security is often an illusion. What do you think is the most unsettling aspect of Hitchcock's psychological mastery? Share your thoughts in the comments below, we'd love to hear your perspective on his unique genius. His manipulation extended to the very structure of narrative itself, often defying conventional expectations. He would introduce a seemingly central character, only to dispatch them shockingly early, as he did with Marion Crane. This wasn't a plot twist for shock value alone, it was a brutal demonstration of the narrative's unpredictable, unforgiving nature, a cinematic declaration that no one, not even the protagonist, was safe from the arbitrary cruelty of fate. This shattered the audience's preconceived notions of storytelling, leaving them disoriented and vulnerable, acutely aware that the traditional rules no longer applied. It was a deliberate act of narrative sabotage, designed to amplify the sense of dread and reinforce the idea that in his world, no one was truly secure. He understood that the most profound fear isn't about death itself, but about the slow, agonizing process of losing everything that defines you, your identity, your sanity, your freedom. His characters often faced not just physical threats, but psychological torture, forced into situations that eroded their sense of self. The wrong man accused, the woman witnessing a murder no one believes, the individual trapped in a web of espionage, these were not just external conflicts, but battles for their very soul. The worst-case scenario he presented was a complete loss of agency, a descent into a nightmare where truth is irrelevant and escape seems impossible. This deeper, more insidious level of terror is what truly cemented his legacy, making his films resonate far beyond simple entertainment. He wasn't just making movies, he was dissecting the human psyche, exposing its rawest nerves for all to see. His films weren't just watched, they were experienced, leaving an indelible mark long after the credits rolled, a testament to a mind that understood fear not as a momentary jolt, but as a persistent, unsettling companion. This profound, lingering effect is precisely what elevates Alfred Hitchcock beyond mere master filmmaker to a true architect of the human psyche. His grand design wasn't just to tell a story, but to meticulously construct an experience that would infiltrate your consciousness, burrowing deep into your subconscious fears and anxieties. He didn't just want you to be scared for 2 hours, he wanted you to leave the cinema with a subtly altered perception of the world, forever questioning the stability of your own reality. This was his true plan, a hidden agenda operating on a level far deeper than simple plot mechanics or character arcs. It was an audacious, almost philosophical endeavor to reveal the terrifying fragility of human existence itself, to expose the thin veneer of order that scarcely conceals the chaos beneath. Hitchcock understood that the most potent fear isn't of the monster under the bed, but of the monster within, or the monster disguised as your friendly neighbor. His worst-case scenarios were never fantastical. They were chillingly plausible, rooted in the everyday, turning the familiar into the profoundly menacing. Imagine the quiet suburban street you grew up on, transformed into a hunting ground. Picture the comforting embrace of a shower, becoming a scene of unspeakable horror. Consider the innocent flock of birds, suddenly morphing into an apocalyptic omen. He didn't invent new fears, he merely shone a spotlight on the ones we already harbored, amplifying them to unbearable intensity by demonstrating their potential manifestation in the most mundane contexts. This insidious subversion of the ordinary was his signature, a diabolical trick that made the world itself seem complicit in the unfolding terror. He wasn't content with just showing you danger, he wanted you to feel it, to internalize it so completely that it became a part of your own psychological landscape. His narrative structures were often designed to mirror the very processes of paranoia and anxiety. The slow build-up, the deliberate withholding of information, the sudden, shocking revelations that recontextualized everything, these weren't just storytelling devices. They were calculated psychological manipulations, designed to keep the audience in a perpetual state of unease, constantly searching for the hidden threat, the unseen hand pulling the strings. This created a sense of complicity, an almost unwilling participation in the unfolding drama, where the viewer became not just an observer, but a fellow traveler on a terrifying journey into the unknown. His characters, particularly his protagonists, were often extensions of this grand design. They were ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances, stripped of their agency, their reputations, and sometimes, even their sanity. This wasn't just about crafting compelling characters, it was about creating a relatable vessel through which the audience could experience the worst-case scenario of total powerlessness. We watched them struggle, not just against external villains, but against a system that refused to believe them, against circumstances that seemed almost cosmically aligned against them. This profound sense of injustice, of being utterly alone against an indifferent or hostile world, resonated deeply because it tapped into a universal human fear, the fear of being misunderstood, of being falsely accused, of having your life irrevocably shattered by forces beyond your control. It was a mirror reflecting our own deepest vulnerabilities. The genius of Hitchcock lay in his ability to make the audience question everything they held dear, the safety of their homes, the trustworthiness of authority, the very nature of truth. He didn't just present a story where good triumphs over evil, he often presented a world where the lines were blurred, where innocence offered no guarantee of protection, and where justice was a fickle, elusive concept. This wasn't about cheap thrills, it was about a profound, almost existential questioning of the moral fabric of society. His films forced us to confront the uncomfortable possibility that the world is not always fair, that bad things happen to good people, and that sometimes, there is no easy resolution, only the lingering shadow of dread. This was the true plan, to leave you with a sense of unease that permeated your thoughts long after the projector stopped rolling, a subtle but persistent reminder of the precariousness of peace. He was a master illusionist, not in the sense of magic tricks, but in his unparalleled ability to manipulate perception. Every frame, every cut, every subtle camera movement was a brushstroke in a larger, meticulously planned psychological portrait. He understood that what the audience imagined was infinitely more terrifying than what he could explicitly show. The implied violence, the unseen threat, the whispered suggestion of horror, these were far more potent than any amount of gore. He trusted the audience's mind to fill in the blanks, to conjure their own personal demons, making the terror uniquely tailored and profoundly disturbing. This was his diabolical pact with the viewer, he provided the framework, and we, with our own anxieties, supplied the true horror. This wasn't just about entertainment, it was a masterclass in the art of psychological warfare, waged subtly and brilliantly on the consciousness of his audience. He didn't just direct films, he directed emotions, thoughts, and even lingering anxieties. His legacy isn't merely a collection of iconic movies, it's a testament to a man who understood the architecture of fear better than anyone before or since. He didn't just create suspense, he became the very embodiment of it, a cinematic titan who dared to expose the raw, vulnerable nerves of humanity. His films continue to haunt, to inspire, and to challenge, precisely because they speak to timeless, universal fears. They are not merely period pieces, they are profound explorations of the human condition, revealing the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of the ordinary, and the terror that resides within the depths of our own minds. He taught us that true horror isn't found in external monsters, but in the insidious realization of our own fragility, our own complicity, and the constant, lurking possibility of a worst-case scenario that could shatter everything we hold dear. This was Hitchcock's ultimate triumph, to make us not just fear the story, but to fear what the story reveals about ourselves and the world we inhabit. He remains, without question, the unparalleled master of suspense, because he was, above all, the unparalleled master of the human mind. If you found this deep dive into the genius of Alfred Hitchcock as captivating as we did, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the minds of cinematic legends. Don't forget to hit that like button to show your support, and let us know in the comments what other directors you believe have a similar profound impact on their audience. Your engagement helps us continue uncovering these incredible stories.